Edward Marx is an accomplished leader with over 2 decades of experience helping companies to digitally transform. Now, you could put it simply and say what Edward does is help people and their organizations to succeed. But what really makes Ed special is his passion. Whether he's encouraging people to innovate, or writing healthcare bestsellers, or climbing a mountain, Ed never loses sight of that human spark that makes people so special. So, here to show us how to go about boosting workplace culture in a day and in an age where we are fully digital, please help me welcome to the stage Edward Marx. Thank you, Edward. And while I have you here, I wonder if you have a top tip for speaking in front of people.
I think you hit really good ones. I think another one that you alluded to is constantly rehearse so you never have to have notes, and that it becomes just part of your passion, like who you are. And that's been what's worked a little bit for me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. No, I'm super thrilled. I really am, because I can tell you I've been very fortunate. I've worked for many awesome companies like all of you, global companies, multi-billion-dollar, international conglomerates, mostly healthcare-oriented. But the reason for a lot of my success goes back to working with HR. I mean, I was just this kid starting out as a leader when I was in my 20s, and it's HR that saved me, because I had no clue what I was doing, and I took advantage. I know I met some people earlier in the reception who are in training and development, things like that. I just took it all in, and I really led with everything that you all have taught me. So the things I get to share with you in the next 20 minutes, a lot of them you're going to know already, but I guarantee that there'll be 1 or 2 new things that you'll say, hey, it made waiting for dessert worthwhile. So thanks again for having me, and I'm super excited. So let's just get going. So we could all relate, right? We're talking about, all right, we got AI and different technologies. We're working from home. That was what we were talking about a lot at our dinner table. And so the world has changed, right? Even in the last 5 years, things have really accelerated with technology. So we could probably relate to this at our homes. Everyone's on their devices, things like that. Of course, it's gotten to the workplace as well. And so we really have to be intentional if we want to keep these cultures that we're so proud of developing. And we know that culture is what differentiates a company and what ensures success, whether as an individual or as a team or as an organization. So that's why I really focus a lot on this. And I know you don't know who I am, so I kind of doing things backwards. I'm going to tell you the results first so that you'll listen to what I have to share. I originally was going to have 4 what I call hacks, like, hey, these are 4 things you can do, but I really ended up with like 10. But I'm going to go through them super fast. And like I said, 8 of them you'll know. But for each one of you, I think there might be 1 or 2 new things that you might be able to adopt. So what are the results of the things I'm about to speak about? So one is, yeah, I do climb mountains. I just finished the 5th of the 7 summits last week. And I take my teams with me. So all of my teams, whether it was Cleveland Clinic, New York City, Texas Health, University Hospitals, I've taken a team from those hospitals, and we summited one of the 7 summits. And it takes a lot to do. Is it really about culture? But here's the sort of things that you're familiar with, right? All these awards, and the organizations I just mentioned still are winning these awards today. So I was very proud to be part of those organizations, and we would win all the awards that you're so proud of winning as well, that show recognition that, hey, this is a great place to work. It's a diverse place to work. It's the best place in healthcare. So I won a lot of awards because of the teams I was with in healthcare, in technology, but some of these are just in general, right? Like Forbes Best Places to Work. So things you can resonate with, and these are all recent, and it's been throughout my career, though, that we've been winning these awards. So that's the result. But this is my favorite picture I think I have that really speaks to results. So I'm an executive, right? I was most often a chief information officer or chief digital officer as part of the C-suite. And this is the chief nurse officer. So imagine one of your peers in the executive suite, and we're at a board retreat, and she is so pleased with the performance of our team, of the technology, that she kissed me on the cheek. And that's a very intimate thing. I mean, seriously, think about that. And she holds my face in her hands. And other than the board member back there who's kind of like trying to figure out, hey, what's going on with this situation, that spoke the most to me. Those awards are fine, and they're fine to hang up, on your wall or in your trophy cabinets or whatever. But the fact that we had that kind of culture that we developed with technology, right? A lot of times people, they don't necessarily enjoy technology, like technology, especially for those of you with a healthcare background. Nurses in particular didn't really like all the technology that we were bringing because it was disrupting the way they were used to doing things. And for the chief nurse officer to be that thankful and show that sort of emotion and love for what we were doing with technology that saved people's lives means everything to me. And so that's always been my goal, is to have that type of relationship with the rest of my C-suite. And I think for the most part, I can tell you that's the type of relationships we've had. And it comes because of culture and the hacks that I'm about to get into. So here are some of the hacks. So this is my team in New York City. So one of the hacks is we get together. So whether we're virtual or not, and some of my teams have been virtual. I led through the pandemic at a multinational organization. We still got together in person, and we celebrated our cultures. And that's really important because not everyone is going to be like me or have my culture. So we are always very intentional about being multicultural. So in New York City, it was very easy because our team was just naturally multicultural. And so on a monthly basis, we all dressed in most of us dressed in our native clothing, and we just got together and celebrated and shared our native food. It's very simple, and you're probably thinking, oh, is this what he's going to talk about? But I'm telling you, if you weave all the things I'm telling you together, you will change people's lives. And I'm going to give you evidence of that. It comes back to the why. So all my meetings, I have my customers. So I know I'm going to give a lot of healthcare examples, but you can easily translate this into your customers. So I have two primary customers in healthcare. The first are my clinicians, and the second are my patients. So let me talk about what I do at my leadership meetings, right? Everyone brings together their teams, virtual or otherwise. And so I always have a clinician is my second speaker. The first speaker is a patient, which I'm going to get to in a second. So I have a clinician speak. And instead of me telling them, because they're used to, oh, the CEO is always going to say that, or the CIO is always going to say that, how great people are and how important their work is. But when a customer comes in and tells them, and this heart surgeon, there was a high-profile heart case that came in, a sort of a famous person in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, and everyone knew about it, and this surgeon saved his life. And everyone's like, wow, what an amazing surgeon. He came in to our meeting, and he asked, who here works in networking, right? And so a bunch of people raised their hand. He said, stand up. He goes, when we needed everything to work in the wireless, we had to move all this equipment, all the equipment talk to each other, you helped save that person's life. And then he asked, who here works on the electronic health record? So there's our main software system. And a bunch of people raised their hand, and he said the same thing. Hey, without that system and getting immediate results and seeing immediate images, we could not have done what we did with that patient. And they stood up. And at the end of his talk, every person in my team was standing up. They knew that what they did mattered in the lives of real people, helping save their lives. So whatever it is for you, have your customer always, not one time, not once a year, but I'm telling you, every time we got together in a town hall type situation, all hands on deck, we had the customer. Another customer, I give you so many examples, but for the sake of time, I'm just ripping right through these. But this was my favorite. Well, I don't know if I had a favorite. We had so many good ones, but this was Betty. And so she was the first speaker, so we'd always have a patient first. And I never really knew what they were going to talk about. All we knew, we worked through our process, and it was someone who used our technology, and it made a difference in her life. That's all we knew when they came in. And she comes in dressed like this. So she's into Taekwondo, I think it was. And so all of a sudden, I look in the back of the room, and her entire dojo comes in. So about 30 people, all dressed like this. This was her family. This was her village, her tribe. And she came up, and they had boards. And this 80-some-year-old woman was talking about how hard it was for her to get access to our healthcare system, how frustrating it was, and then she would break a board to make a demonstrative difference. And then people were like astonished, and like it was very experiential. And then she talked about how this new software, we had a portal that was on the mobile, and how it really revolutionized her ability to get care much quicker, faster, and it made a difference in the quality of her life. And so, wow. So everyone on my team and the culture that we're developing is like, wow, what we do matters. People have to know what they do matters. If you don't, it's one thing for you to tell them, and I'm sure you do, but have your customers tell them is more impactful. The other thing is availability, again, especially in a virtual world. So I make myself available in multiple ways. One is I would do something called Wine with Ed, and the wine was W-H-I-N-E, but there was wine also included. And so I had every Thursday evening, we had, with our main campus, we had a hotel connected to it, had a bar and a restaurant, and it was known that after hours, sometimes the clinicians would go over there and just unwind. And so I set it up. They knew that Ed was going to be there every Thursday from 5 to 7, and they could have a glass of wine or whatever they wanted to drink and just have a chance to interact. And so I did all sorts of things like that. I'd walk with Ed, and that was Friday mornings. We had long hauls, and they could walk with me, and I could walk with them on their rounds. For my employees, I did the same thing. I had office hours, and we had remote locations, and I had office hours once a week in those remote locations. I also set it up within our city where on Wednesday nights, I would meet people at different places that they might go drink. So from 5 to 7, literally, different parts of Dallas-Fort Worth. Like one time it might be in a city called Plano, and another Wednesday night it might be in a different city called Fort Worth. But I made myself available physically. Not in the office all the time, because some people are intimidated by that. But they're not as intimidated by going and have a beer with you or a Coke or whatever they might drink. But I also did it online, so especially during that pandemic. So I had virtual office hours. People knew at any time they could connect with me. Everyone had my cell phone, and I had 3,500 employees. Everyone had my cell phone. They had direct access to me, and hardly anyone ever texted me. But the fact that they knew that they could set the tone and set the culture for that if they ever needed me, that I was there for them. So make yourself available. And then we used Slack, and we used all these different capabilities where every day I would write, and they would see it on a waterfall. They would see, hey, today I'm doing this, I'm hanging out with these physicians, or I'm at this hospital, or we have a C-suite meeting, or I'm doing X, Y, Z. They always knew, and they could interact. And it was all transparent unless they wanted a private conversation. So you can do this electronically because we have teams around the world, you have teams around the country, and you can do it physically. So you have to make yourself available. There's so many different ways of doing it. I believe including families. Now, I know there's some old school thinking that says, oh, you should separate, work from regular life. And that's fine. If that's the way your organization culture is, that's good. I'm not like that. I'm not wired like that. I just can't work like that. So I include families and everything. So we just always celebrate, again, I'm really big into diversity, so we celebrate whatever cultures. This happened to be Holi, so an Indian festival of colors. And so it wasn't just something we did in the workplace. No, we did it on a weekend and included families. And I estimate at one point that over 75% of my teams and their families had been to my house. So we would have parties at our house, we'd have celebrations at our house. It's one thing if you have a celebration, you go to some restaurant, it's really formal, and people really don't interact with you because you're only going to interact with the people that are sitting right next to you or across from you. You're never going to interact with the person that's 3 tables away. So I just have them at my home. And that way they get to see my family, meet my family, and we get to interact and really get to know each other. So again, that might seem too far out, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't have the results that we had, and I'm going to give you a 1 or 2 final ones if it's not for doing these sort of things. So if you want to maintain a great culture in this age of AI and technology and virtual and those sort of things, these are the type of things that you should do. Another one, again, super simple, but I really challenge you to think, when's the last time you wrote a handwritten thank you card? So as much as I love technology, again, I'm a technologist. As much as I love technology, I don't abandon old-fashioned things either. And so the handwritten thank you card is a powerful, powerful, powerful tool. I'll give you a couple examples. So one, my team, my leadership team, whenever we met, which by the way, we never met in IT in our corporate office. We always met in a customer office. So for us, it would have been a hospital, or it would have been a different division, including HR, supply chain, finance. We never met in IT. It goes back to availability and being transparent and being accountable and setting the tone for your culture. But we handed out thank you cards, and I would ask, who are some people we're going to thank? And we'd all sign these thank you cards. Do you know what it means to an employee, a teammate, when they get a handwritten thank you card from you? It means the world. I'm going to give you 2 quick examples. One is there's Nurse Cratchit. Everyone has a Nurse Cratchit. Even though you're not healthcare necessarily, you've got the grumpy leader in your organization. You know who this is. And what I used to do in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, in every market, they do 100 top nurses. And usually, you know, a quarter of them would be in my organization. So I'd write them a handwritten thank you card. And I'd forget about it. You know, I'd write them one night, and I'd sort of forget about them, put them in the inter-office mail. And I remember one time at a meeting, it was a couple months later, Nurse Cratchit, you could hear her when she's coming, right? Because she's like always like mad. And she's kind of stomping, and she comes up to me, and I brace myself. You know what it's like. You're going to meet with that person that, you know, it's never comfortable, and you kind of brace yourself, and I'm bracing myself. And she started crying. And she said, Ed, I've worked here for over 20 years, and no one's ever said thank you. No leader from the C-suite has ever said thank you. So it means the world. She became our ally. Where she used to be someone we used to hate and fight, she became our ally. And another one, I'm married. I didn't show you a picture of my family and stuff, but I literally married like an Indian princess. And I'm telling you, one reason that I was able to get the first date was because of a thank you card. Because again, I wrote these thank you cards to these top nurses. And when I was dating my wife, who's a clinician, one of the nurses, and she was asking, hey, do you guys know who this Ed Marx is? You know, she knew me, but she didn't know me, and she's trying to find out from other people, who's this person? And someone went to their cube, and they had a card from like 3 years prior. It was from me. I had no idea who this nurse was, other than she was in the top, you know, 100 nurses. And she had a thank you card written for me, and she goes, this is what that guy's like. And she went on a date with me, and we got married. So, and I still write her cards today, you know. I still write my kids and my wife. They still get physical thank you cards. Identity. So here's another hack, really important. And again, I know some of you might be uncomfortable because I know I cross the line a little bit with, you know, how personal I get with the people that I serve with. But my gosh, you spend more time with them than you do your own family. You might as well get to know them a little bit. So I'm really into calling out people's identity. So on my mountain treks, I have a 95% success rate, meaning getting to the summit and back. The average, when you talk about the type of peaks I'm talking about, is about 30%, because you can't control weather, and sometimes you get sick and different things. But we have an unheard of number, and someone asked why. And I really don't know the exact reason why, but I know one of the reasons why is before. So this is a base camp of Elbrus. This is the highest mountain in Europe. So about the next day, we're going to go, we're probably around 16,000, 17,000 feet here. The next day, we're going to go to 23. And it's hard. For those of you who climb, you know what it's summit day is super, super hard. And I go one by one. And I do this, some of them are my employees, some of these are other C-suite members. And I do it with my employees. I go one by one, like when we're about to do something big and hairy and audacious, really hard, where people want to quit. I go one by one, I look them in the eye, and I tell them how important they are to the success of this mission. So whether it's like what their role is on a mountain climb, or what their role is in order to get this new ERP system implemented, a new HR system implemented, Workday, Oracle, whatever you might use, I look them in the eye and I tell them exactly what their role is and how important they are, and we can't do it without them, if indeed I believe that. And if I didn't believe it, they wouldn't be on my team, especially climbing a mountain. I'm not putting my life at risk, and I think the same way in the workplace. So know your people and speak to them eyeball to eyeball. How many of you, I'm not asking you to raise your hand, but just, you know, challenging you, because I want to make sure everyone leaves with one or two new things. Challenging you, have you ever done it? And maybe you should, try it. Engagement. So how do you engage? I keep my own CRM, or customer relationship management. You know, I just use Outlook. It's not hard, right? You have contacts, and in the notes of contacts, you can do everything I'm about to say. I know everyone's favorite wine, right? Because there's going to be certain situations that we screw up. We make a big mistake. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to send them a handwritten note from me and my team, and I'm going to send them their favorite bottle of wine, or whatever it is. You know, maybe for someone else it's candles. But whatever it is, I know them. I know their anniversary. I know their birth date. I know their kids. I know their hobbies. I'll go to their things. You know, I talked earlier about engagement and things like that. I'll go. Like if they're doing a recital for piano, I will be there. They invite me to a wedding, I will be there. Whatever it is they invite me to, I'm going to be there. That's the type of engagement. If you want to create this amazing, continue to have this amazing culture despite AI and virtual and all that kind of stuff, this is what you got to do. Transparency. you have to be gut-level transparency. I had this horrible thing happen to me. I got cancer, and I had to have a prostatectomy. It was like a horrible thing to have happen for multiple reasons. But I was very transparent about it. My whole team knew about it. And when I came back, when I came back from my surgery, they all knew, right? Because I kept them up to date, and they all knew what was going on, like where's Ed, where's the boss, all that kind of stuff. This is my office at Cleveland Clinic. This is, but all one wall is all glass that you write on. All 3 walls were full of these clovers, handwritten statements from members of my team. So I knew they were giving me back the same love, the same respect, the same admiration, the same identity that I was giving them. That's the culture. That's why we did freaking amazing things that I'm trying to get to in the time that I got left. Honor. So you got to honor people. How do you honor people? Well, unfortunately, right, if you are in a big enough organization or you lead long enough, people are going to die. And unfortunately, I've had it happen 8 times. 8 times where someone on my team has passed away, but we always honored them. And so this is the lobby of one of my offices. So when the elevator door opens, you see these ever-lit candles, and you see this frame. It's a technology frame, so it flips to the 8 people every 10 seconds. And so one time we hired this star network guy, and we don't pay as much as the other type of industries do in our town. And so I eventually asked him a few months later, like, why did you pick us when you had all these other opportunities? He said, because when the elevator doors open, for my interview, I saw my dad. So it turned out, none of us knew it, that many years before, his dad had worked in our organization, had passed away. He said, any organization that honors my dad, I'm going to serve. And so that's the culture, and that's the way it works. I'm going to tell you someone said, Ed, what are you most proud of? So I've had, and I still have a great career, but I got to serve at some amazing places. And so at the Cleveland Clinic, people would say, well, Ed, what's the best thing you did? I said, I'll tell you the best thing. If you ask that question to the CEO, this is the best thing. So probably like you have daily huddles. I know not every organization does daily huddles, but it's a common practice where you know everything that's going on in the business. So for us, in healthcare, it starts at 7 a.m. with nurses. Then eventually it might reach a hospital level, and then eventually it'll reach multiple hospitals, divisions. And for us, we had 7 layers. So the 7th layer was 11 a.m. It was the C-suite. And in 15 minutes, we had these huddles. And we knew every key metric of the organization. Every key metric we tracked daily. But the one thing that I added was that at the very end, one of the metrics was how many people passed away. In a big health system, it's going to be about 12 to 20 people. And we used to say, metric, 13 people passed. And I said, how can we do that? It's not a number. It's a person. And so every day, the C-suite still cries today because they read out the names of every person. And it just rebases you like, oh my gosh, this is what we do. And I know you're not healthcare. Whatever it is, though, what is that key thing? What is that key why that you could remember and recall every day and share that experience? That's what creates a culture. That's why you get to do fantastic things. And so ending with 2 stories. So we've done some fantastic things. And again, I could give you hundreds of examples. These are just 2 off the top of my head, so I just put together some pictures. So one was a problem where someone was about to die. Everyone knew it. Nothing could do. End of life. Was still coherent. And he said, I want to die outside in the sun, surrounded by my family. So it was a challenging situation to try to pull that off. So I also have biomed. So I have tech, what we call biomed. And so working with the clinicians and administration, a lot of people, team of teams type concept here to make this work, we figured it out. And so we emptied out, at this particular hospital, we had a outdoor garden area. We cleared it out of all the visitors for a brief moment, and we were able to put some of the life support things under his bed, take out the bed, surrounded by family, sunlight, thankfully, and they were singing hymns as he passed. And that wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the type of culture that we had created because of all these hacks I just shared with you. So this stuff doesn't happen because, oh, well, okay, let's work on it. No, because when someone comes up with a hard problem, you're like, oh, we can't do anything. Nah, we can't do anything. But man, if you're in a culture which is all about, man, how do we know our why, we know each other, we care about each other, we know each other's families, we're going to go the extra mile to do stuff. The last example would be this couple where, and this is in Plano, Texas, and you can like Google all this stuff or ChatGPT all this stuff and find these stories. So this couple, they were both previously married, they lost their spouses, they each had 3 kids, kind of like a Brady Bunch thing, and they wanted a kid of their own. So they got married, sure enough, she becomes pregnant. Into her pregnancy, about the 3rd or 4th month, he gets terminal cancer. And he's going to die. He's not going to make it to see the baby. So again, the clinicians, they call us, and they're like, how do we do this? What can we do? You know, so working with our biomed, again, other people involved, not just my division, but our division, a key component of this, we figured it out, how to put him into deep coma, and this is all the credit to the clinicians here, and then they were able to bring him out of coma when the baby was born, and they had about 2 hours together before he ultimately passed. But this doesn't happen just because someone says, oh, hey, we got a little problem here, you know, we're trying to figure this out. No, what would normally happen is the person would have passed, and it was a sad story. But because of the culture, because of these different hacks that I'm talking about, it created this environment where people wanted to work extra hard. They wanted to sit in a bunch of meetings trying to figure this thing out and call around the world and try to like find out what technology we might be able to leverage, what other people may have done in similar circumstances. They stayed up all night. They got up early, whatever it took to help other people in their greatest time of need. So that's really what it's all about. It's no like clever gimmick. It's no clever technology. We all have one life to live. That's really memento mori for those of you who are into Latin. We have one life to live. You know, live it well. Make a difference. So whatever it is, whatever industry, whether it's clothing or cookware or General Motors or McChrystal Leadership and who else did I meet? Landscape, realty, whatever it is, you can really make a difference and impact in the people's lives, not only on your teams, but those that you serve around the country, around the world. So with that, thank you so much for having me as a speaker.